Hello, and welcome to the 6-5 Summit. I'm Shelley Kramer, one of the founding partners of Futurum Research, and on behalf of my team at Futurum and the team at Moor Insights and Strategy, welcome. We're so glad you're here. This keynote session kicks off our collaboration, customer experience, and contact center track. And Moor Insights' Patrick Moorhead has the opportunity to sit down with Panos Panay, the Executive Vice President and Chief Product Officer at Microsoft, about the Microsoft Surface product line and the importance of seamless experiences across both hardware and software. I'm looking forward to what Panos has to say on this topic, and I'll bet you are too. Let's go have a listen.
Panos, it's great to see you, and thank you so much for kicking off this track for the 6-5 Summit. I mean, getting to know you over the last few years has been pretty awesome, and I appreciate you doing this.
You're so nice. Are you kidding? I'm pumped to be here. It's fun, and then you're polite and you're so nice, Pat. Like I'm excited to not only watch and spend time watching your event, but also just be here with you now. It's great.
Oh, I appreciate this. And listen, there's nothing. Well, I'm an ex-product person. I love products, okay? And one of the benefits of my role now as an industry analyst is that I can advise on a lot of products. I can be part of so many product launches and developments. I'm like a kid in a candy store, but you actually have the best title at Microsoft, I think, which is Chief Product Officer. I mean, like, how did you get into this? And how is what you did for the previous decades kind of gotten you ready for the big role?
Oh, it's a good question. I do feel like I'm lucky. I feel blessed to have the title I have and be able to do the job I do. And sometimes it can mean responsible for everything and nothing at the same time. It just depends. I'm also responsible, as you know, for Windows all up and Surface as the brands, kind of that I oversee in the product lines and businesses. But as product for me too, that's what I am. I'm a product maker, near and dear to my heart. It's what I've done, Pat, for, I don't know, the better part of 25, 30 years. I think. I hate to reflect on how old I am, so I just I ignore the actual dates and timelines.
Oh, wait a second. It's wisdom, Panos. Not getting older. Come on.
I feel so wise, Pat. It's in the gray. It's in the gray, actually. It's like it's showing up everywhere. I have to say, I started my. People ask me, like, where, how do you think about every detail? Why do you care about so many of the nuances? What is it about understanding the customer or who it's for? Or why does that matter so much? And that's what product making is, this collection of so many things. I tell the team, and especially kind of new people joining the team, like you're here because of your history. You're here because of all the things that you've done to get you to this point, especially as a product maker. And you have to believe in that history. You have to use it. Everything we've learned, when you talk about growth mindset, it really is about what have I learned along my journey that includes success, failure, that includes, the most trying times and maybe even the most simplest or happiest of times. And all that, including us as in our childhood, like where we came from, is part of the motivation when you make something or build something. And so, like, as a product maker, I feel like we're all product makers. But for me, I started getting my hands on devices when I was, a kid, 6, 7 years old. I was lucky. My dad was a hardware engineer, and he had this love for tinkering and building products. When I was 6 or 7, I would be in my room and I'd go to bed, and like anyone who was, any child, if you will, at that age, at bedtime. So I'd go to bed. I'd complain. I didn't want to go to bed, which doesn't make sense to me now. Like, I do anything to get to bed. And when, you get to bed, and I laid down, and it turns out at that time, my father and I shared a room. I mean, it was my bedroom and it was his office. And so he would come in every night, Pat, and he would work on his hobby, which was building either a TV or a radio, in this case, a TV. And, he'd have the tube, and did his own soldering, and he had everything laid out. And he had 2D drawings that he would work off of. And it was amazing what he would do. And the best part was he would always know I was awake. And so he would just ask me to join him. We wouldn't tell mom, of course. And so I'd get out of bed and I'd get at it. And honestly, you know, just being with my dad, that was years of building products. He's here visiting me in Seattle right now. So I feel lucky to be able to still spend the time with him. And I told him I was going to talk to you today. And we did talk about a little bit about what we made, and he gets this pride, you know, and he still has the original TV that we built. I mean, it's pretty ugly for sure, but at the time it was beautiful, and for what it was being made for, incredible. You know, and through my career, I was able to just hit different points, and I'll call that, you know, maybe not at 6 or 7 years old a career, but it is like you're learning, you're finding the things you fall in love with, the tinkering, the building, the making, and I did that my whole life. I ended up actually, you know, there were two moments in my career that I don't talk about a lot, but one of them is I joined M&M Mars Calcan, and you know, a lot of people don't know that about my history, but what I did was production management and kind of moving dog food around the country, and cat food, I should say. I'm a you know, dogs and cats, but I know that seems interesting, but you know, at one point, Pat, you know, to make sure the quality of the dog food was right, we used to taste it and eat it, you know, because that's part of just understanding it. So it's kind of ironic that I would actually taste dog food versus now I dog food all my own products. It's almost the same thing, you know, what we talk about. And I think that's where that quote comes from. But I went to a Japanese company. After that, I went into tech, and I spent 4 or 5 years with a incredible set of Japanese engineers, just kind of walking me through the details and what it meant to build a product, what patience meant, what every detail meant, the beauty and how something can come out of a product like that. I spent my years just feeling like, I think the whole time just learning what it really meant. And then pulling that all together, ended up at Microsoft. And I came here to work on mice and keyboards. And that was 18 years ago. And it just kind of evolved through all the hardware. It's quite a while.
And I'm pretty sure that I used every mouse and keyboard that you worked on. I mean, it's so funny too. The industry was trying to get rid of the mouse, and it just keeps coming back, you know. It is amazing. So how on earth do you take your knowledge of mice and keyboards and turn it into the Surface line? By the way, a fun fact, I have every model, surface, and design that you've ever made in my tech warehouse, all the way back to version 1 with 2 different processor makers inside. But how do you go from mice and keyboard to Surface?
Oh wow, yeah, you know, that's awesome. I don't think I have every device, Pat. You know,
I'll share. I'll share.
I do have a few that we didn't ship as well, by the way. Those ones you don't have, but if you do, I'd be pretty impressed on how you got them for sure. Look, that seam back then, you know, mice and keyboards were there to complete an experience. And while they seem like simple accessories, or maybe, you know, something you attach to what you do, imagine life without one of those two things right now. And, you know, think about that idea that, you know, hardware can complete a software experience, and then take that and evolve it to actually the hardware and software need to be made together to create perfection. I think it was about 12 years ago or so, kind of got tapped to go create a product. Like I knew hardware, I knew it pretty well. I knew software, but also kind of how you brought something to market with Windows. That was what I had spent, you know, 4 or 5 years on. And we were having some pretty good success. And when the company was developing Windows 8, they had this thought on, hey, how do we complete that experience with hardware? And that's what we did. So we built, we went from the ground up. You know, Surface wasn't even called Surface when we started, Pat. It was just, let's go build it. It was a tablet. Like, let's build a tablet.
Right.
And you know, I was working on the Surface Table, if you remember it.
Yes, absolutely. And so my Silicon was in the first generation of that.
Oh, is that actually, you tie that off? That's right. And I think if you just cut to building this product. There were 12 people. We got together. I put together a vision and thought a little bit about what it could be. And when we started, it was pretty intense. It was different. Like you said, there were multiple silicon parties involved. It was definitely a sensitive topic for the company. We had to kind of do it all in secret. It was culturally shifting, if you will, in many ways. And then, we went through generation over generation. We ended up getting to the vision that that the team originally had, which was Surface Pro 3, and kind of hit the ground and took off. And we went to, we anchored on a bunch of cultural attributes as a team and what it meant to us to build these products and what it meant to complete it for the company and bring Windows 8 to life. And so we went for it. And, by the time Surface Pro 3 came around, ultimately to Surface Pro 4 with Windows 10, you start to see some momentum and, kind of took off from there. And the team started as 12, and I don't think I want to tell you how many people are on it now, but let's say it's a couple thousand more than 12 probably at this point.
Yeah, by the way, that same time frame, Surface Pro 3 and Surface Pro 4 was when I saw liftoff that said this is a product line that has staying power. And hats off to you for not bailing after a few couple of intents. It really showed to me how strategic this was to a company, because the PC environment is, you make a small mistake and it is going to be very costly, and that scared people in the industry. And at the time, people were very risk averse. They were afraid to try things, right? For fear of failing. And one thing that I really admired was that you stuck your neck out time and time again.
I remember apologizing on stage, Pat, at one point. But it really is not necessarily me sticking my neck out. It's the truth of the company, starting something, sticking with it, knowing that the purpose was right. How you bring hardware and software together to make an incredible experience. Satya had come in right around that time, and was part of like that bet on, hey, to have permission to be in the hardware business, we do need that end-to-end product that people love. And that was a bet that I think still pays off today. And you got to hand it to, there were so many senior leaders of the company that were just willing to be patient. And I think in product making and just in general, one thing I've learned, and even from my early days before Microsoft, was patience. And then, let your love flow into the product, let your, expertise flow into the product, let your vision flow into the product. But none of that works without patience and perseverance, of course, but really it's about, do you have a vision? Can you stick with it? And that's what product making is. You know what it's meant to be. You know what it should be. Customer is telling you what they need. Patiently get yourself there. Getting there with the first version is always almost impossible. You can get pretty close and maybe even sometimes hit it out of the park, but really it's about listening to your customer after that and understanding what they need. And then you can pretty much thrive. And kudos to the company there and, to just sticking with it and the leadership here at Microsoft for doing so.
So 2 years ago, the company put you in charge, in addition to Surface, in charge of the leader of Windows, which, it's funny. I remember all the conversation and all the talk. Oh my gosh, the guy from Surface who's competing with me, moving to this Windows thing. What's this guy like? And I actually had to field questions from your customers on, no. Panos is, talk to Panos guy. He's you're gonna love it, right? And sure enough, today they're just like, yeah, I really appreciate the point of view that Panos has, because he has empathy for what I do. Right. But tell me, how did this come to be, this appointment, and what are some of the things that it means to the product?
The conversations are around, at least 2-3 years ago, we have such a great opportunity to remove these seams between hardware and software, and it's what our customers needed, and that's where it started from. And Windows 10 had done incredible things for our Windows customers. You're talking about over 1.2 billion or so people at that time, or 1.1 billion using it. And, it was about how do we really take it one step further. And the conversations with, Satya, Rajesh, others, it really was about what is the next phase of Windows? How do we bring it to life in a way where people, fall in love with it again, as opposed to just need it? And that was the conversation. Like, people need Windows. But really, for me, my passion is I want people to love it. I want people to want it. You want to open it and feel good. And a big part of that is making that seam between hardware and software go away. Actually, a massive part. And my partners, they're amazing. You think about the OEMs, Dell, HP, Lenovo, Acer, Asus, Samsung. You look at these partners, and they truly are they know how to build world-class hardware. They understand how to build incredible products. They have supply chains that are just to die for. And you see that opportunity for, you're talking about serving over 1 billion people, Pat. And what is the most selfless way to do that? It's bring in as many partners as you can. Look at that seam between hardware and software. Listen to your customers. And then let's go get something elegant done that people love. Because we kind of that transition in our industry has been like, hey, I want to fall in love with the product I use. I don't think people use those words. I get it. I've used it a lot, but it is that, it's meaningful to me. The thing I use every day, the people I connect with on it every day. And now you have Windows 11. It's being adopted faster than any other OS we've ever shipped. It's ramping. The usage is awesome. The people are finding ways to get different things done. There are new behaviors created through, the pandemic, and those behaviors are sticking. And Windows 11 is kind of enhancing the ability to get into the things you want to get done. And so there's a lot of pride in that. And as much as pride working with my partners, as much as it is this team that built Windows 11, using all of the history of Microsoft to do that, I think it's been a good journey. It's been a fun journey so far. I mean, it's just the beginning, I hope, but indeed it's been fun.
Yeah. So one of these, I want to talk about collaboration real quick. We just saw just a complete retrench of how we work. And I think your team had some really smart viewpoints on it. Us analysts, we like to think that we're first to the trough with these great ideas. But one thing I'll admit that I picked up from your team was, it said, Patrick, this hybrid thing is going to be harder than remote, and it's going to be harder than where we were before. And sure enough, we're here. And I'm curious, Panos, you've got Windows, you've got the operating system and the experience there, along with your own first-party hardware and the rest of the partners. How do you view the decisions you're making towards the future related to improving that collaboration experience?
So a couple of ways to think about it. One, what you use to collaborate is it's different. It's different for so many people. And so you have to think that way. Like, we're building a broad-based ecosystem here. And so the first thing to think about is that's different types of cameras, different screens, and probably most importantly, different applications or experiences that people use. The trick is for us to remove as many seams between all those things as possible. So when you and me want to connect, we remove them. And then the next step for us has been, how do we emotionally connect people in a way that, hey, I want to be with you right now, Pat. I don't want to be here. Where are you? In Austin, likely? And I'm here in Redmond. And you go, okay, so it'd be so much better if I was in Austin, basically because I want the sun today, and I don't think it's that out. But I'm not. I'm here, and it's a behavior that has shifted, and it's okay. This gave us the chance to connect, and that is the behavioral shift that's going to stay, where we can choose. There's a balance. Hey, Pat, you want to meet in person, or should we get on this call? And it'll be a choice, and the choice should become one that it's ubiquitous, it's continuous. It doesn't matter which it is. It's just what's better for us today. To make that true, you got to connect with each other in a more emotional way, and whether that's perfection through the rendering of the screen, if you will, or the imagery, or it's the connection eye to eye. And or it's a simple background blur because I want some privacy, whatever it might be, the nuance in that. Now we're back to product making. The details are going to matter. And our team's been looking at this for a long while, pre-pandemic. I mean, it's so fun. I remember maybe 3-4 versions of Surface ago, we were celebrating the camera and people were like, who uses a camera on a PC? As a matter of fact, I remember being in a room and people were saying, why don't you just take out the camera? It's expensive. Nobody needs it. Like, they're not taking selfies with their computers. I mean, Pat, is that amazing? Like,
isn't that, no, I totally forgot that was the case, but you are absolutely right. I remember that.
I would show like a Skype video, like with my daughter and I, like, this is how we're going to communicate in the future. And people, what are you talking about? Don't you have a phone? And so if you take all that, what it did is it gave us a view of anchoring technology. So now we have this ability to not tax the CPU as much, don't tax the GPU as much. Let's make sure we optimize the PC, the design point, with our partners at Intel, AMD, and Qualcomm. Like, let's make sure we're optimizing everywhere in the stack for each opportunity that is an application. And then you can centralize that around Windows and the silicon to do so. And so that's where our focus is. Like, hey, remove as many seams as you can. In this case, these aren't actual physical seams you will ever see, or the seam between software and hardware. I'm talking about the seam between you and I. And the easier I can make one-touch calling, the easier we can get connected, the clearer this call is, the better the speakers are, the better the camera is, the better the microphones are. And quite frankly, the simpler it is to get in and out of a call. That ubiquity that's happening right now in collaboration will only get stronger. And then we get back to the vision of, let's choose, Pat. Do you want to meet face-to-face today, or do you want to meet on this call? And like, what's more advantageous for you and the rest of your world, because it won't matter which it is.
God, I love it. The other area that I have to admit, I didn't think I was going to get sucked into emotionally, but I did.
Okay.
What you're doing with inclusive design. I mean, listen, Panos, I have empathy. I'm a kind of a hard ass from the Midwest, right? And it's like me getting sucked into these things, but I have to tell you, what you're doing in inclusive design has made me cry before. And go back and watch the previous summit interview that I did talking with Surface folks. But can you share what you're doing here and what you did with the Ability Summit?
Yeah. First thing to focus is, we shouldn't underestimate. I mean, 1 in every 4 people in the US are disabled. Like, that's not something to just be like, oh, okay. I mean, when we design inclusively, you have to design for everybody. You're talking about 1 in 4 people in that sense. And you go, of course, I think in the world, there's over 1 billion. And I mentioned that at the Ability Summit. People that are disabled. Just think about that. And the demographic is still growing. Like, my job is to build products for everyone. Think about Windows. Windows isn't for a select few, Pat. We don't just design it for like the cool people or or a certain age group. We design it for the tech leader or anything. We design it for everybody. And that's challenging at times for sure. There are trade-offs that come with it, but everybody includes, literally everyone. And I have a real soft spot here for a lot of reasons I probably won't ever talk about personally, but I will tell you is meaningful to me. Up and down the stack has to be perfect for disabled people. Dave Dame joined my team, I think about a year ago now. I don't know for sure. He inspires me so much. And Dave will tell you stories how, look, everyone's going to be disabled one day. And when he said that to me, eventually we all get there, but some of us are getting there sooner. And I can't, like, it hits you so hard. You just realize, like, there's so much opportunity to make things better for people. We can say words like, we're going to change the world and stuff. And I believe that. Don't get me wrong. Like, we are going to empower every individual on the planet to achieve more, but it's more than belief. It goes deeper. Like, I don't know, like, it's hard to explain. So if you take a look, if you have a chance, for those of you watching, go watch the Ability Summit. Don't watch it for like it's a cool show. That doesn't matter. Go watch it for the impact that each of us can have on the world with the changes we're making. We launched a new adaptive mouse. We had the adaptive Xbox controller. Before that, we have the adaptive kit. We fundamentally are enabling more keyboard scenarios with our adaptive keyboard, our hub, and some buttons. Those things are awesome, but you start to realize this is not commodity product making. This isn't build one for everybody. This is build one for each person and who they are and how unique each of us are as people. And I think that matters to all of us, to your point that you just made. Like, if you just sit back and think about it for a minute, we're all part of making that thought of inclusive design true for all of us. And some of that includes, stuff you may not understand why you do it, or others may not understand why we have done it. But at the end of the day, if we can design for everyone, that makes a difference for me. And we did that through Windows. And so one note for just on this journey is, when we create a product or when we're designing a product, and I mean that from every feature in Windows is a product to me, and there's a lot of them. And I mean a lot of them, Pat. I can't give you the numbers. They intimidate me even when I say it. Or if it's a hardware product, or if it's a partner's product. Like, the thing we start with is that specific design point of how is this inclusive, and if it's not, why and where. And I think when you start from that, you end up with something beautiful at the other end. We don't always get it right. Let's be clear. We don't always get it right, but we will work pretty damn hard to make sure we do everything we can for people.
If you were getting it right every time, I would think that you're not taking enough shots and stretching enough. And it's funny, as we get older, and particularly industry analysts like me that have to pretend like we know everything. When Dave uttered the words, "Everyone will be disabled eventually," sometimes some of us just get there sooner. I literally froze.
Right. That's the quote.
And I was just like, I couldn't believe I was looking at it as also this other thing. This is for other people, right? And it's like, no, this is going to actually likely be for me sometime in my life. And then it became real. And I think what you've been able to do, because part of this is education, because we live in, it is a village, and we need more people doing a lot of this. But that was a good way to make it real for people. And, hats off to you. I went through your lab that you had set up. I went through there.
Oh, the Inclusive Tech Lab. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
I went through there about a month ago, and it was first rate. So, hey, I have to ask, want to wrap this up here. I have to ask you about Build. I mean,
okay.
a lot of stuff going on with Windows, a lot of Windows stuff. And it's like, well, wait a second. I heard, out of the peanut gallery, Microsoft doesn't talk about Windows anymore at Build. And it's like, here we are. We're talking big time Windows during Build. What was the highlight for you? I know you love all of your children the same, but what was your highlight?
Thank you for saving me. Oh, come on. See, you just did it. So you just did it. You told me what I can't say. Like, look, there are so many people that work on Build, Pat.
Yeah.
Because it's not to work on Build per se. It's the work that's done on the products that then kind of manifest themselves at Build to be spoken about. And so each one of these things, people put their heart into it, whether it's Volterra or it's Azure Compute on the local device, the new Microsoft Store pieces, third-party widgets. They're all pretty dang cool.
How about if I bracket it to Windows and Surface? Does that help?
I thought, look, no, it doesn't help at all. Like, I'm still gonna upset somebody. Like, somebody gets upset. But I'll tell you, look, it's fair to say Volterra was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
If you were paying attention to Project Volterra, there's so much behind it. It's opportunity for devs to really take advantage of just new processing power and a different way to think about compute. So for me, when I get a little bit geeky there, but that's where I go, well, there's something super romantic about all that, how all that comes together. And, I think I just at heart, I'm not a dev and I want to be a dev. So I've always I feel like I guess my job now is to give as many tools as I can and hope that they love what those are. And I have an incredible dev team, if you will, like just a development organization that thinks about devs, creates tools for them all the time. And I'm pretty blessed to be part of that. But I think if you forced me, I would go. Volterra brings in a lot of Windows, a lot of Surface, a lot of OEM opportunity. Like it brings everybody together. So I'm okay, like saying that Windows Dev Kit was probably that's the way. That's the only answer I can give you without getting myself in trouble with my best of friends. How about
my
that?
company spans, chips to SaaS. But if I had to pick the Windows I mean, it would have been that too. So
Okay, good. I'll take
can
it.
you
All
imagine?
right.
Can you believe that? No. And we didn't talk about this beforehand or anything like that. But yeah, that would have been my favorite. And I don't know, I might have to get on your website and sign up for it, give it to my son, Patrick, and see what he can do with it. Gosh,
I'll tell you
Panos,
what, when it's ready, we'll get it to Patrick and see what he can do with it.
Appreciate that. Panos, thank you so much for this. I'm sure the audience loved it. I appreciate you bringing in some of the personal stuff, and I understand it's sometimes hard to do, but when it's in context of kind of how you got in here and how Panos thinks and how his team thinks and reflects to me on what we can expect and the passion for your product. If you can get passionate for a product, people shouldn't even be in products, right?
I'm with
And
you.
it is something that I have truly appreciated about working with your team. They're all passionate about different things and making things better and thoughtfully thinking through them. So anyways, thanks for your time.
I'm grateful. You had me, Pat. Be well, my friend.
Thanks.